Welcome to chapter 2 of the Bible story. It's called The Law of the Jungle. In the story of Adam and Eve, the Bible pinpoints the root of the trouble with human nature. It is rebellion against God. In the collection of stories that immediately follow, the point is further underlined. We should be making a great mistake if we were to dismiss the stories of Cain and Abel, Noah's Ark, the Tower of Babel, and all the other narratives contained in Genesis chapters 4 to 11 as being merely primitive folk tales. They were that originally, of course, but when this part of the Bible came to be compiled, the editors wisely recognised that the best way to teach religious truth was to use ancient and familiar tales. So they took these old stories, which are not historical in our modern sense, and made them serve a religious or moral purpose. The Bible uses these narratives as a series of little pen pictures to show what human nature is really like and what happens when we're left to ourselves. It is a realistic and shattering sketch of the world without the gospel. It shows us that when we try to run our affairs without any reference to the law of God, we end up by following the law of the jungle. These chapters are a brutally frank description of the rake's progress of humanity bent on its own destruction. The Bible begins by showing us ourselves as Adam and Eve, with the world at our feet and opportunity knocking at the door. We choose to turn our backs on God, rejecting the way of life that He has laid down for us, and deciding to follow the way that seems easiest or pleasantest or best for ourselves. Then in the story of Cain and Abel, the Bible takes us a stage further. It shows us that we're all not only rebellious Adams, but also murderous Cains. Cain is as universal a type as Adam. He too is every man. He begins by resenting his brother Abel's good fortune, and he broods over the injustices of life, which denies him what he considers to be a fair deal. His resentment grows into hate, and hate, given the opportunity, ends in murder. Confronted with his crime, he utters the plea of the guilty conscience, which has echoed down the ages. Am I my brother's keeper? And when sentence is pronounced on him, he whiningly protests, my punishment is greater than I can bear. It does not need profound self-examination to tell us that this is a true picture of ourselves. Murder is all, without ever necessarily holding a gun or a knife in our hands. We share the guilt of a civilization which has left behind it a trail of blood. The victims of war, slavery, starvation, gas chambers, and industrial exploitation are our brothers in the common family of mankind, and their deaths lie at all our doors. Whether we like it or not, we are our brother's keepers. It's not by accident that the Bible follows up the story of Cain and Abel with a list of Cain's descendants, who are supposed to have been the originators of the various arts and crafts and the builders of cities. Or that one of them sings a hymn of hate in which he boasts of his power of massive retaliation. All of this has a singularly modern ring. The Bible is obviously not condemning progress or the march of civilization. After all, as we have seen, man was put into the world to develop its resources. But we are being warned that the more complex society becomes, the more it offers opportunity for the Cain-like side of human nature. Greed, violence, and irresponsibility towards those who are our brothers. The war cry of Cain's descendant, glorying in his program of even more widespread slaughter, is only too terribly relevant. This is civilization as we know it. One of the strangest stories in this part of the Bible is about giants. Here we are indeed in the realm of fairy tales, the world of Jack the Giant Killer and Hercules. We may well wonder what it's all about. It's a story of erring angels who come down to earth, marry earthly women, and produce supermen as their offspring. Later writers tended to think in terms of fallen angels who lost their status as a result of their lapse from grace, were then banished to the demon world, and from there instigated all the evils that afflict humankind. This is almost as fanciful as the story itself. But it does indicate what the Bible is telling us in this mysterious tale. When we read in the newspapers of cases of calculated sadistic cruelty, or watch on television the subhuman violence of race riots, or recall the sickening bestiality and butchery practiced in Nazi concentration camps, we instinctively feel that behaviour of this kind is something more than human misdemeanour. There's something diabolical about it, something demonic. Our grandfathers would have put it down to the work of Satan, and found no difficulty in laying the evil deeds of men at the door of the Prince of Darkness. The Bible at this point does no more than suggest that there is this demonic element in the evil of which men are capable. It does not give us a scientific reason for the vileness which sometimes makes us despair of the human race, but a diagnosis of our human situation. The explanations of modern psychologists do not take us very much further. The Bible is saying that the problem of evil is more complicated than just our choosing to disobey the laws of God. It's suggesting that there is an all-pervasive corruption in the world which taints everything we do, a poison at work in the human heart and in society which frustrates our best intentions. St. Paul, in his letter to the Christians at Ephesus, makes the same point as the Genesis story when he says, "We're up against the unseen power that controls this dark world and spiritual agents from the very headquarters of evil." Both are telling us that any hope of society putting itself right by its own efforts is a delusion. It's sheer folly to trust in the onward march of mankind to a better kind of world through scientific advance, higher education, or increased social services. Our best laid schemes and our loftiest aspirations founder in the face of the perversity of human nature and the gigantic power of evil that often confronts us. No more sombre verdict has ever been pronounced on mankind as a whole than the words which come at the end of this story of fallen angels. "And the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the ground, both man and beast, and creeping things, and fowl of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them." If this judgment had been God's last word, it would have been the end of the story of the Bible, and of us.